Hello, my name is Robert Mitchell, and today Electromaker is here at Hardware Pioneers Max 2024 in London, and I'm joined by the Connected Geek with Mauser, and it is an absolute pleasure to have you here today.
Fantastic, thanks very much.
Now, just before we started recording this video, we had a bit of an interesting conversation about connectors. So my first question to you is, why are connectors so boring, and why did you choose it?
Well, they're not boring. Connectors represent one of the most complex parts of the electronics industry, simply because selecting a connector is so difficult. There are so many different things they've got to do in so many different environments that choosing some is a real problem for engineers that, they've got degrees, they're clever guys, and yet they're faced with such a wide variety of choice. Where do they even start?
And I think it would be fair to say that, like you say, when engineers are designing a circuit, they spend most of their time worried about the functioning of the circuit, but they completely forget that how does their circuit connect to the rest of the world? And so, funnily enough, I actually had this problem myself because I've been recently working on some circuits for a company, and we're trying to come up with the smallest module we can come up with, and the biggest problem has been the connector in that situation. But what I do find impressive about connectors, as we were discussing earlier, is that in certain situations you need to have a connector that can survive obscene G-forces. And one example was munitions, where you might have a circuit in maybe like a time charge or something, fires out of a cannon, experiencing thousands of Gs. And my question to you is, how on earth did they make these things survive those kind of environments?
Well, there's different things about how you terminate the wires or how you might terminate the connector onto the board. And one of the things that people aren't necessarily aware of is that solder and gold don't necessarily work very well together. So we've got a connector, this just happens to be a tiny little connector. It's got gold contacts in the back, and you might want to solder wires into that. Under normal circumstances, that's fine, but if you're going to exert any kind of forces on this, the way the gold and the solder interact means that you have to actually strip the gold out before you terminate them. So it's just one of those examples that you have to choose the right connector, but they know how to treat them right for these applications.
So they buy the connector, they strip the gold out, which was put in by the manufacturer for their own custom job.
Yes. I won't bore you with the technicalities, but
please do.
All right, okay. Tin lead solder, when you put that into a gold connector, the gold and the tin form a little layer around a little blob of lead that doesn't stick as well as it might do under normal circumstances.
What?
So if you take the gold out and expose the bare brass before you put the solder in, then the solder will do the job it's designed to do.
And so the only reason why they're putting gold on in the first place is to create a non-oxidizing layer. But by putting that non-oxidizing layer on, you impact its ability to be soldered.
In certain applications, yes. There's a good chunk of engineers out here who won't care. They're in a nice industrial environment where a little bit of vibration is not going to cause a problem. But there's always those extreme applications. So whether munitions is one example, Formula One vehicles, any kind of race cars that take shock and vibration, and some industrial processes that take a lot of impact. In those circumstances, you have to be very careful how you solder. Maybe you move some solder to a crimp, to a mechanical joint, because that gives you extra strength. There's all sorts of swings and roundabouts to be had. This is why connectors aren't boring, because you have to make those decisions.
That's absolutely fantastic. Now, just before we wrap up this video, got one more question for you. If you had to pick your favorite connector, which one would it be? Think carefully. I know mine.
Well, that's really tricky. I will show this. I used to work for Limo many years ago. Limo make connectors that last in all sorts of applications. Professional finish. It's fair to say they're not cheap, but this is the Swiss watch of the connector world.
And that's because it can survive in all environments?
Yes, the contacts are designed to be used thousands of times.
He's got contacts inside?
Tiny little contacts inside.
Oh, wow.
It's a push-pull connector, so it doesn't have any kind of screw locking. It's literally pull and take apart. But under normal circumstances, it is entirely vibration-proof. But you can see the professional finish. These things get used on professional audio, instrumentation, military applications.
So that's low insertion force?
Yes.
But it's keeping itself together?
Yes. There's springs, you can see the little latches on the side there. Yep. They engage within the socket as it goes in. You can hear a click. If you pull on the cable, if there was cable attached, that stays intact. Pull the little sleeve.
Oh, I see. The sleeve goes back. Right, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
So
That's brilliant.
It's a push-pull connector. They are, as I say, the Swiss watch. They're made in Switzerland. And there's other companies that do similar things, very similar types of connector. But these are like I say, these are the Rado watch of the connector world.
Mine's DB9, but that's for legacy reasons.
That's a traditionalist view.
A traditional, yeah. I really like the fact it's heavy, 2 screws, it's not going to go anywhere. But that is absolutely fantastic.
But it shows a little bit of the variation of a connector. You're talking about a DB9. You can buy a DB9 that costs 50 cents that will get plugged in 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Then you can buy a DB9 that's designed for applications in space that's $800 to $1,000 each.
Yeah.
So, and they are ultimately a very similar connector. They will plug into each other. This represents the variation in the connector world that you don't necessarily see when you're just going onto the Mauser catalogue to go and buy a connector.
Well, you heard it here first. Connectors are not boring. They are, in fact, interesting apparently, I think. Anyway, thank you ever so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.